Hello, good morning, good evening. Due to the presence of the guest, I record this episode exceptionally in English. What is motion control robot and what is it for? What is the difference between working with such an advanced technique in a feature film and in commercials? What do client and agency know about robots? What is the rigging team and why is it important in tabletop commercial? Why 3D post-production won't replace motion control? Julian Hermannsen is one of the best motion control robot operators in the world. He has worked on many Hollywood productions and is also a very creative support for tabletop advertisers. I have had pleasure of working with Julian many times and I have seen how he works and how precisely he approaches each film. What is interesting about his work? Explosions, throwing objects and trying to shoot them with incredible speed, moving the robot to the maximum on the tracks, showing the world differently than we see it during normal camera movements. I invite you to the world that doesn't exist. 1, 2, 3. Julian, let's check the microphone
1,
again.
2, 3. Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Hello, Julian. We are right now in Istanbul. Thank you very much, first of all, for that you are my guest right now in a hotel in Istanbul.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks a lot. Tomorrow we have a shooting.
Yeah, we shouldn't talk too long then.
Yeah, next project together. So, Julian, do you want or not? You are the best motion control operator around the world. You know that. So, how you started?
How I started? Okay. Well, it's quite a while ago. I got into motion control like 2006, but I did 3D and compositing and visual effects. I did that before, so I did that since '99. So I think I already came from a different background. Back then, it was also different to the other motion control operators, because most of them came from camera side, I think, or camera grip. I'm not really sure, but it adds something because I'm used to make camera moves in 3D, and I think a bit different about space due to that.
Yeah.
But I always liked to do real things. I was always fascinated with shooting in-camera effects, camera tricks, miniatures, all these things.
To meet the people, to meet the crew.
Yeah,
to
well,
be on
that's
the
the
set.
other thing where I'm very happy that I prefer this to. I work with a computer, but most of the work I do is just communicating on set. The computer is it's just a tiny tool.
Device, yeah.
Yeah, it's a device, but I have to think about what I want to do, communicate. Yeah, but it was when I started with motion control, it was very hard to get into because there were not many machines. There was one Milo in Germany. There was no Bolt anywhere. It was not available then. It was 2006. So and the Milo in Germany, I didn't have a chance to get my hands on because it's a Milo and it was father and son. They owned it, and basically I didn't see any chance to really apply it. But I was fascinated. I wanted to do it, and I just booked a training at Mark Roberts and said, okay, I don't care. I just go to England where they have the machines because I just want to learn it for me. I'm interested. I want to do it. So
you had a lesson in London, correct?
yeah, I went to London to Mark Roberts for 3 days, and afterwards I also got quite a lot of support for them. I got the software version, but I was doing it on my computer without a system. So I was just looking at the curves at the interface. I could see a 3D model of the Milo, but it was more theoretic, which sometimes also helps me now because when I'm creating a move, I think about where to place the points because I'm used to thinking about it before. I didn't start by moving the system somewhere. I started by just thinking about what I want to do. because I didn't have a system.
One thing for the people who don't know what's kind of system we're talking about right now. So please explain a little bit more about what is the Milo, what is the bolt, what is the camera movement on this devices. So
Yeah, the Milo is well, let's start with the bolt. That's an industrial robot. It's used for high-speed shooting. We use it mostly for tabletop, where basically you just use the arm. It's a very, very fast arm, which can accelerate up to full speed in very short distance. So if you shoot 1,000 frames and still want to see some movement in the picture, then this is the robot you're using. Compared to that, the Milo is really built from ground up for camera work, for camera movement, and it was designed in the 90s. It's not as fast, but you can see the difference when you make camera moves, when you make more complicated moves, that it's basically they wanted to move a camera with 20 kilos weight, and they wanted to be able to move it in a certain range and wanted it to be stable. And then they calculated what they need to do that. So when you see the system, it looks quite big. So some people are very surprised how wide the arm is. But that's what makes it rigid. And the bolt is it doesn't have a large, it's not very heavy. That's why it can accelerate so fast, but it's also not as stable as the Milo. So I really like working with the Milo. It's I don't know, it's genius system really, and it's beautiful. I think the movements, some of the movements, I think are really beautiful. What you can do with it, even when you just look at the system.
Nice.
Yeah. No, but that's like the standard for motion control, and it was the standard for motion control since they built it. That's basically the standard you use, and high speed is a different thing. There you use the bolt. A lot of people are using bolt for whatever because they have it, which is okay if you don't have another system available. But I think bolt is for a specific purpose and Milo is for another purpose.
You showed me a shot which you did with a car is crashing into a tree. This were to shot for the newest James Bond with Daniel Craig. What is the difference in preparing a commercial and the feature film for you?
Okay, maybe that's difficult as an example because I didn't prepare that much for it.
Okay.
I came in quite late to do the shot, or do basically the second half of the shot because they had a problem when they shot the first part. So, but I wasn't involved in preparing there. I have other projects where I worked on features where there's a lot more preparation going on.
But you had a chance to work with that kind of project, like a project for the big company from United States. So you have some kind of feeling what is the preparation for the shooting, what is the crew and production approach, and try to maybe give me some small examples. Maybe you can tell me something about this one. What is the approach, and to compare it with the commercial productions? Well, if it's possible, of course.
Yeah, I don't know if I can do it on that, but I mean, Bond, there was really a big logistical effort, and we were basically just one unit standing there for that one shot, and then they were shooting all over the forest, and then at one moment I came and we did that shot. So and you don't have a lot of time to do it then, so you have to be ready. In general, I can say also from my other experience on the big features where you prepare it and then you don't have the actor for long. You have him like very short. So you prepare. One example was maybe Chronicles of Narnia. I worked on the third movie of that, and we had one scaling shot where it's a person who was placed in a miniature set. So we were shooting maybe 6 days miniature shoot, or 3, 4, something like that. And then we did one shot where the camera was circling around a point in a miniature landscape. And a few weeks later, we went and shot an actor on blue screen, but the move was scaled 3 times bigger. So the person looks 3 times smaller in this, standing in the set, acting there. So for that one, I made a measure, I made some drawings how we need to set up the tracks and that it works to do that move in the bigger scale so that it still works there. We did a complete prep day and did a test shot in the evening. So in the morning on the shoot day, actor came in and we were wrapped in 20 minutes.
Wow.
And they were happy about that. They were really happy. They thought, hey, perfect, thank you, you can take down. When I think about Germany or a lot of the other countries, I think no one would do a prep day for that.
Yeah.
They would try to squeeze it into one day. And that's my experience with pre-planning on this is like the actors are expensive and it's expensive if you have a shoot day.
But you can hire a doubler.
You can hire a double. That's what of course for prep it's fine, but here people try to cut down on prep time very often and they put it to the shoot. And there, even if you only have to work 10 minutes on the shoot day, it was still a positive experience because that was the goal. They wanted to be able to do that as quickly as possible and then move on to the next thing. And for that, motion control in general is really perfect. That's also what I did with like working with football players, where you will have a time window of 20 minutes maybe. 15 minutes, 20 minutes.
So because they are busy, because they don't have enough time to shooting all day.
You get 10 people, they come around, so you have one after another, it's completely timed the whole day. So we had them maybe 20 minutes and 10 minutes is photo. And 10 minutes is us shooting with them. So
what kind of football players you had?
I'm not really into football, so I know some of them were more popular, but I shot once in Nice in like southern France. I think it was French players. I'm really sorry, probably people will kill me for this. Okay, and the other one, that's even Germany, there was Borussia Dortmund, where I think I recognized one because he plays at least one in the German, also in the international league. But I don't really know the players.
Oh, never mind.
I didn't care too much, but no, but it was fun.
You're focusing on your device.
Yeah. No, the shots look nice. So if people are friendly, then that's more important, I think.
Okay, next question. Okay, let's explain what the rigging team is. This is a team of the people very important in tabletop commercials when you need high quality special effects. When you need to splash around, crush the chocolates, throw something, make the explosions on the set, etc. They prepare special devices for this, and thanks to them, all that ideas can be created. We often use high speed. Everything happens, for example, one shots in 2 seconds. And at the same time, when we have an explosion of vegetables, the camera has to make a mega fast movement in 1 second. Everything has to be perfectly synchronized. Can you tell me a little bit more about your approach to the rigging crew? How important are they to you?
Well, I can work different if I can trust that it's repeatable, that it's precise. I worked a lot in different countries, so I'm also used to just count down 3, 2, 1, go, and then I press the button, or I watch if someone pours something. The only problem is I can only do that if I have the time to react to something. If I have to press start before the effect comes, I cannot do it that way. So I did the counting down, but when you're in control, when it's up to 1,000th frame or even more, like we shot some things at 2,500 frames per second and still put delays of 3 frames in there because it should come like 2 explosions going like doo-doom. So that was 3 frames offset, but it still works, and I love when you can calculate it, which is also kind of my approach. I don't know with how many people you worked, but I know a lot of people are also doing guessing, which is also fine, like for timing. But my approach is really more to watch, okay, this is what's happening, and if I know exactly what's happening,
And try to calculate.
I read, okay, this is what the real movement is. What can I do as a camera move based on that? So I first look at the effect in high speed, look at the playback. I can count the frames there, and then I say, okay, at this frame I need to be here. At this frame I need to be here. Maybe it's too fast. Maybe think about what else you could do, and like this, it makes it. I think to some it looks really like magic when you look at an effect and the camera's not moving, and then you have a falling object, and we just shoot it as a locked position, and then I do a camera move, and on the first take you have it in frame. So that's exactly what I like. So there's always parts where you have to guess, where you cannot, like for example, focus along the axis of the camera. So if you have something coming towards you, you can shoot it from the side, but sometimes you cannot get a real reference of where the object is.
Yeah.
So the last details are always guessing a bit, but I try to basically analyze the shot and then think about what I do and work from there. But for that you have to be able to, like the SFX people have to be really precise
and repeatable, because sometimes it's happened that you have a 1 second and third one shots. Okay, it works like the same, timing, everything is clear and we know what we have. But when we start fourth one and fifth one, something is happening, is going wrong.
Yeah, I
so
had that.
it's what's happened right now. So you have to figure out some kind of new movement, or you try to communicate better with your rigging team to make some correction, or
that is the nice part, and that's the fun part. I don't mean when it's not working, but very often you have to think about, okay, how can we make this happen, and how do we turn this into a nice shot. And a lot of it is not, I cannot do it with the camera. So some things I can do with the camera. Sometimes it's okay, maybe we have to increase the pressure a bit to make this, or the SFX team has to do something else. So it's not just me doing something and they are doing something independent, but it's collaborating. If you want to have a nice shot, you cannot look at the picture and say, okay, change the camera move to this. Of course you can, but very often you have to tweak. If it's not right, you have to first think about, okay, what's wrong? What's wrong, and how can we make it right, or how can we change it? And then it's nice to work with people you know for a long time, and most of the people I work with, I think nearly all the SFX people, I like it because they are also very open. It's not like anyone's fault. It's really just, okay, how can we figure this out? Even if we had problems like that, it's not repeatable. Like we had shots where maybe something was thrown, but it was bouncing off a plate and it was bouncing different. So it was really hard for me to follow that movement, but we could still talk about, okay, what's the problem? How can we achieve it? And if it's luck, then maybe you just need a few takes. That can happen. So sometimes you have takes where it's just, okay, we have like 10 frames variation, and you can live with that if it doesn't take half an hour to reset the shot.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, very often I have to do many camera movements to create one shot. I have 2, 3, 4, even more separate camera movements, which I will match together in one into the post. For example, like a first shot, so we have noodles are flying into the boiling water. When the camera starts moving down from the top shot, we're following the noodles to the pot, and then we have to repeat the same movement of the camera to record the flames, for example, from under the pot, splashes of the water and other things that will finally build this shot for us. So I know that is difficult sometimes to explain, but I must always to explain exactly what will happen to the client and the agency on the set. So not always the client understands this, but I'm thankful that they trust me. How do you explain what you do to people who have no idea how it works? How do you explain?
Are you asking for tips for your work?
No, because sometimes we had a nice conversation with people which staying around us, and we have to explain to them what's happened, that the camera will be going down, and there is a lot of very technical terms. And to be honest, I don't know for sure, but 90% of the people who listen our conversation, they don't know nothing about what's happened, and they're waiting for the final result.
That's why I'm quite happy that I'm not the director, because no, I'm really in the good position that all the people I work with normally, where I need to communicate, they speak the language I speak, and we can, like, you understand me. Or I mean, I work a lot with also other directors which shoot motion control for the first time. So
yeah, this is my point. That is my point. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for that it's good. It's good to have a prep day, even if you don't really need it for the prep day. But sometimes you just have to get into the groove. So people are used to it. Some people are very scared. They think, oh, this takes like ages to program, and it depends on the movement. So it depends on if you don't need a complicated shot. You can do 3 points in 1 minute if you want. So it's, of course, you don't get a final high-speed shot that quickly, but doing the moves on the bolt is normally, it's not taking a lot of time. If you have something falling, something like what we did today with it's a circling shot.
Yeah.
So it's basically a distance, and it's 2 or 3 keyframes. So that the move itself is not what's complicated. The tweaking with the effects and everything together, that's more complicated. I like to be able to show it, then it's easy. So very often when you can explain whatever you want, but give me 5 minutes with someone and I can just show them, okay, I do a point here, I do a point there. That's what I very often do with directors or DOPs. I just do something, move it, and just do any movement, and then they get an idea of how can you change it, how can you control it.
So, okay, and in other way, some of your friends want to ask you, hey, Julian, what are you doing in Istanbul right now? What's usually your response?
Well, most of the time, I normally use motion control as a word and not robot, but basically it's a robot with the camera on, and I make camera movements, which is, it's true. In the special effect case, it's a bit understated, maybe, because you also do a lot of other things, but basically that's what I do. I program camera movements with a computerized or motorized crane. So now it would look like this. So
the shots are interesting for you when you have many options to find nice movements, find different camera angles. That is the thing when the shots start to be very interesting for you. Yeah. Or what's the thing?
There are
where
different
is the shot
things.
Where is the shot interesting?
I can maybe give you some examples.
Yeah.
So there, okay, I have high speed, where I think the timing is the interesting part there. It's not necessarily
for the high speed. Yeah.
For the high speed. So the extreme example, one extreme example was for a Sony commercial where we had water drops falling onto a surface, and they were falling to music on the beat, like
on the same rhythm.
Yeah. So we had I think 18 droppers in one shot, and 2 of the drops were landing at the same time, and it was timed to the music at 938 frames per second, played back at 50 frames per second. So you have to be frame accurate. And
so what you did with camera movement?
Well, no, it was a simple move. That's what I mean. It's not a complicated move, but I had to calculate the whole timing, because basically they're setting up all these dropper devices, and you cannot set it up so precise that it drops at the same moment. But what you can do is you can shoot it, and then you can see, oh, it lands on this frame, and then figure out the offsets for all the drops. And then I had a camera movement, and then basically we had the sequence, and we can say, okay, now we have the whole sequence. Where do you want your shot to start? That's what you do in the camera move. I say, well, from 250, so if you have 70 frames, you can say, this is the move, this is fast, the speed is good, in point is there, out point is there, and then, so it's a lot of calculation. That's
Nice.
That's one thing for high speed. For the Milo, with actors, there was, for example, a shot I did, which was a 2.5 minute sequence with actors. So it starts with a girl when she's young in the 60s, and it took steps like every 10 years. So it's a 2.5 minute long camera move in a room, while the room is dressing, the room is changing to like a new design.
Like an environment.
Yeah, we changed the whole environment. The props are changing, the actors are changing, the dressing are changing, but the camera keeps continuing. And I love doing that because we were fortunate to have a lot of prep time for that basically in my studio, just with black Molton. We just had a dummy because we thought, okay, it doesn't make sense to do any previs, because we knew the moment you go on set and you want to do 2.5 minutes time to actors, you cannot tell them, hey, you have to move exactly like our 3D animator thought you would move. That's not going to work. So we worked with real people and just playing around, basically. So sometimes I was reacting to what I saw from what the people were doing. So what's a good scene? What can they do? Or sometimes I thought, okay, if I cross from one side to another, and they also switch places, so it was like a dance, and I think that's the part I like, when it's like a dance of the camera with people.
Yeah.
And
Sounds
I
good.
like it also more subtle there. So if it's, of course, the camera was moving the whole time, and it's nice pictures, nice movement, but it's also not. It's not in your face. It's just you should look at what's happening there.
Yeah, that's your point. Okay. When I'm thinking right now about the camera movement, so I always try to improve myself. I always try to do something new, like you, because this is some kind of challenge for us. Maybe for the food, so I don't have so many chances to find new challenges, because I'm working usually on the macro shots and in the high speed too. But do you remember your most difficult shots and how long you set up the bolt motion control movement?
My most difficult,
You don't remember?
No, it's really, well, the most difficult ones are the ones I took longest to program, were
Yeah, that's my
definitely
question.
not on the Bolt.
On the Milo,
On the Milo or Titan or...
what it was?
Well, I did one sequence in China, which was 8.5 minutes without a cut.
Wow.
42
Like a master shot.
42
master
meters
shot.
of track, and it was 12 sets, going like in 360 around the track.
Okay.
So I did movements from one set to
And
another.
the action one was inside a circle? No.
It was we had the 42 meters of track, but we had sets placed on both sides of the track.
Right.
So I was basically circling around the whole thing. It was way too long. I mean, it's a nice move, it's nice choreography, what the actors are doing. It was for China from when it was founded to now. It was like a film for that, also historical, like going through different times. When we talked about the shot, I thought it was 4 minutes long, so I also didn't have a lot of time to program that. So we thought, okay, it's 4 minutes, but then when you start talking with the director, it was like, yeah, and then we come from this window, then we see the actor, then we look at the table where he's writing his paper, and then we go to a close-up of that, and then we go back to over shoulder, and I thought, okay, like I just thought, I timed it in my head, and I thought, okay, this room is like 45 seconds, and we have 11 more. So Oh no,
Okay.
no, there's no time limit. It's not bound to a certain length. And I thought, wow, but we still have to shoot it. But that was really interesting. But there, I remember I was just doing things.
I saw different approaches to work in different parts of the world. It is rather normal, I think so. Different mentality, different rules of the work. Sometimes working 20 hours is the norm. What are your experience with the crews in different parts of the world? You see some differences when you're working in China, in Turkey, in Germany,
Of course.
in Sofia, or
No, of course I see differences, but it's. I think I adjust quite well to it. I mean, one thing, yeah. When I think about it, I think there's a scale of when things are very hierarchical, or as a hierarchy, and like you don't touch this. This is of that department. So
yeah,
that I cannot say exactly. Okay, different countries have different things, but at least that's one axis where you can say, okay, in America it's like normally very clear. This is you have a department for this thing.
Yeah.
You have a department for this thing, and you don't mess with the other people's job.
unions.
So
yeah.
well, unions in the UK it's also very much like that. Although it completely depends on the shoot. I worked in the US, and it was this team. They worked together for a long time with the same people, and it was always okay. They were not really touching their things, but it was not that strict. It didn't feel strict like that. So they were open for. We were just talking about things also, so it's fine. But that you can definitely see in some countries where it's really more open, where you can touch something, move it, and in other you're more careful, and you would ask. So if I want to move a tripod because it's in the way, I think in the UK I would ask first. I mean, in Germany it's a lot of. My feeling is it's more prepared. It's very precisely prepared. What I like about countries like what we did in China, where things just changed completely because of the client on set or because of whatever reason, or also in Turkey, where a lot of it is basically created on the set, where like last shoot I think they were building mock-ups on set on one day, which which also when people asked how to compare it, or I thought a company in Germany would just say no, there's no time, like they need the time, so no, it's not gonna happen. And here I think they go with it, and they are open to do it, and are improvising also, and sometimes the improvisation I also really like.
Yeah,
so that's
exactly.
Definitely what I like here I like it in Turkey a lot, where it's we're improvising. Sometimes we're thinking about how to change, and we're just talking, even if it's not my department. I'm talking with the SFX people about how to do this. And
I think this is good for you. It's good for us. You never expect what happened on the set. You all the time should be surprised what's happened. So it's good to be open for any new solutions, I think so.
That's also what I could see here in Turkey specifically, because I shot for some years now.
Many times.
With the same crew, with SFX. So I think the first shoot I came here, I said, well, we need to be able to trigger the effects. So we can do it. So I showed up. We weren't able to trigger the effect. So we had someone pouring liquid, and it was like countdown, 3, 2, 1, go. And I also like that because then it's not about precision there, but you can still make a nice shot. And sometimes it's nice because I know, okay, I delay a tiny bit and I get a completely different shot without any calculations or whatever. So sometimes I also like that, but I saw how they were improving the whole time, and also that's what I like here. They're really eager to improve themselves, so they are curious. They want to do something new. If they did one shot on a commercial, they want to improve it the next time. So when I want to do the next shot again, I saw this with like two objects colliding. The next time they put a spin on each of the object around its own axis. So they just try to change something to get better, and it's nice to see. Where sometimes when you're shooting in a country where it's very established, where you have sometimes you have the feeling there's a routine in there, where we know how to do it. Okay, this is the way we do it. This is the way we always did it, and I like that. When that's the exciting part, I think, in shooting in countries where they are maybe not doing it for as long, where you see that they're really trying to also just search and do something new.
Nice.
It's not to say that they don't do it in the other countries, but it's just this being very open about, okay, I'm trying something new here. I like that.
You did a lot of great stuff, Julian. So, what are your plans now? How you want to improve yourself? Because you did a lot of great things. So, this is a good question for the future for you.
Yes, it's a good question. Well, I cannot really control it, but I somehow always had interesting projects come. So that makes me very happy if I see something where I know a lot of what we're doing is just, it's commercials, so it's for selling something, but sometimes it turns out to be something very special where you're really happy and you see the result, and could be on feature film where you like it, but it's also not necessarily a good film. So it doesn't make it better than commercials. You can have commercials that are so emotional, which some of the commercials I think are better than some of the feature films I worked on.
Absolutely,
for sure.
So you don't have right now some special goal once you want to achieve?
I like to keep playing and learn new things, do combinations. So that's what I like. New things, combinations. So I did things like with different machines in sync, so 2 Milos or 3-4 robots running together in a choreography, or combining with 3D with projection mapping. So there are a lot of things where I wanted to do this, like in-camera ramping, like in sync to music, which is one thing where I spend a lot of time thinking about it since I started, since 2006, and then finally 2 years ago I did it, where I was really happy about it. I just like to, I think it also improves if people are more used to the technology, because that's what I saw in Germany, that when you compare it to other countries, I think in the UK you have a lot of motion control shots because people are used to write the concepts for it. In Germany, people were not really used to write motion control concepts. If they write something and it's unclear, it's something special in the script, then they ask a visual effect company and they tell them how to do it. And the visual effect company is actually a 3D company. Do you know the difference, what I mean? Because I think in like 20 years ago, you would ask the DOP first if he has time and how to do it. So you show the board to the DOP and you ask them, okay, how are we doing this? And then he would say, that's a visual effect, that's like an optical printer, or let's do this miniature, or I can do that as a camera trick, or maybe it has to go to post-production. Maybe it's 3D, but since I come from this 3D background, I can tell you very often I had pitches on my plate where the director and the DOP were not even clear. So they asked me about, okay, I need a calculation for this, and I thought it's a bit strange. So of course you get a 3D solution. If you ask a company who's only doing 3D, you will always get a 3D solution.
This is new point right now, because 3D and all CGI market right now is getting so good. So the question is how your profession and the bold camera movements and high speeds will be looks till next 10 years?
Well, I think right now when people talk to me, it looks okay. I'm very busy. I'm very fortunate also that I can travel a lot. I have a lot of people who like to work with me. So I'm very thankful for that. But when I started, just as a perspective, before the Bolt came in, there were maybe 50 Milos built since the 90s until 2006, 2010. I think still the numbers around that. So when I started to get into it, people were telling me, "Why are you getting in there? It's dead." No, that's. I just wanted to tell you as a perspective because, yeah, for me it's not dead, but people were telling me, yeah, well, there's one system in Germany and it's really rarely used, and why do you want to do this? And I thought, no, I'm really interested. I really want to do this. So now it's a complete niche market. So there are very, very few people who have a lot of experience with it and do it for longer. And it's a niche, and I like working in this. I like working in a niche market, where I like to do the things. So when I started, the 3D was a niche. That's the change. That's also a change because I think when you say 3D gets better, yeah, it gets better, but we were already at a really good point years ago. It gets more effective right now. It gets maybe cheaper to produce, but you could do really, really good realistic effects years ago. It's just maybe it gets easier. So when I started with that, we were like 3-4 people working on a commercial and having to come up with techniques how to do it. And right now it's you have a toolbox, so you need you get a liquid specialist and you get a lighting rendering guy, compositor, so you mix your team together. So it's much more split. When I started, it was more generalists and it was more like a niche, where I like the exploration aspect of it, to have to come up with something, which I have to do now in this job. But that's also why I think it doesn't go away, because it was not a new market when I started. It was more the old market, and that's what I like to do, like camera tricks, which is pretty old school to do camera tricks. High speed is one thing of it, but a lot of it, of motion control, is basically doing in-camera effects in movement, and that somehow never went away.
So you don't afraid that some CGI approach start to replace your movements?
I think you would more likely get an answer from someone who didn't go exactly the opposite direction, because I'm coming from 3D. I went from 3D to motion control. I think if you ask a motion control operator who came from camera work, grip work, maybe there you will get the reply like 3D. They're scared of 3D. Yeah. I'm not scared of 3D. I use 3D if I need it.
But there is one important thing when you want to compare these two worlds, like a 3D and crew on the set. There's one important thing: lucky. You never expect what's happened if you crashes to chocolates or when you splashes. You never expect. And in the end of the day, when you're watching this result on the screen, you are so excited that it's happened. And when you're sitting in front of your computer, like a 3D operator or graphic master, you can coordinate every details what you have on your screen. You can put the shadows. You can figure out how many droplets will be flying in the air, stuff like that. So this very precisely preparation is not for me. It's very, very artificial, you can say. So this is the question in the end for the client: which way is the good for them, which way they want to achieve. So for me, I prefer for now the normal approach for the shooting days.
And you get so really, really good coincidences where you didn't plan with something, but it just looks good, or it could be another part of the shot or of the effect that you're not using. You probably think about the same thing right now. Also something we did where I think we played the end of the shot reverse, which was not used in the original spot, but then we did the same thing for another spot and use it there, because it was just, oh, this is what happens.
Yeah,
this looks really
exactly.
good.
We like
Not
it.
for this, but it looks really good. And you normally don't get that in 3D.
Absolutely. Okay, Julian, thanks for the interview. I know that you like Turkish Efes beer that we grab right now in our hands. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you again for
Thanks
your
a lot,
interview.
Jacek, for having me.
Thank you. I'm glad that I had the opportunity to take Julian out for a conversation between his travels. So, in next month, we have another joint project with flying liquids, splashes, and unusual camera movements. If you would like to see it closer, I invite you to Julian's Instagram, Visual Distractions. And please do be my guest on my profile, Jacek Szymanski Food. I'm glad that you are with me, and see you in the next episode.